Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Mount Mindset. I'm your host, Gio McNee, and in the first of our series of videos about how to unlock your potential, this one is all about side hustle. So, if you have ever thought about doing something on your own, you have decided you want to spread your wings, you want to see what else is out there in terms of what's possible, or you want to get out of the rat race, you're sick of living paycheck to paycheck. You think that it's possible for you to expand, learn new things, and make best use of your talents and skills. Then getting out the rat race is a very, very, very common and powerful way of finding your feet. And one of the best ways to start is getting a side hustle. Because if your outcome is financial freedom, then you're going to need to do something. Certainly, working in a job and a career is not the most direct route to get there. So what is? So side hustles have become very, very popular recently, and the rise of side hustles is really tied in line with the rise of technology and automation. The ability to sell products and services has never been easier with the advent of social media, software, and other things of that nature. So, what really prevents people from making the leap? Like, why are we all not, you know, fully fledged into this sort of world of unlocking your potential? And there's two reasons that hold people back, and we're going to go into them in detail here. And there's essentially a planning side and there's a mentality side. So we're going to cover them off, and each section I've written down what those sections are and what the common barriers that people can face and how to get over them. So, without further ado, let's get straight into them. But before you do that, if you haven't already, wherever you're watching this podcast episode, Spotify or YouTube, subscribe to the channel, give it a follow, give us a comment, or leave us a review if you're on Spotify. It certainly does help the algorithm. And also, if you know anyone that has been thinking about this and this would be great information for them to hear, share the video. Let them see the advice that we're giving out free of charge, that's coming straight from someone that has walked the walk, not just talking the talk. But also, I have helped people go from the rat race to financial freedom. And there's a well-trodden path and there's a way to do it. So if you're out there and you're thinking about doing this, trust me, it can be done. And it's been done by people that are way less talented and got way less skill than you. So get your finger out and get started. So let's begin with the first part, which is, here's the common questions that I've listed down here. So one of the things that you might want to ask is, how do you know that your side hustle is ready? Well, that comes down to the planning section. And what we'll do is we'll talk about the planning section first because it's logical and it's easy to understand, and then we'll dive into the mentality side of it. So one of the things that you want to understand is, what market are you in? So are you a one-man band? Is it an extremely niche product? Is your service or product that you're supplying, is it saturated, meaning that is there loads and loads of people out there doing it? Do you have some sort of unique skill set that you can add your own twist to make yourself stand out? So there's a bit of research that you want to do. So if you are getting involved in a section of business, so a particular sector, you want to explore what size that sector is. So some basic analysis is, how big is my business sector? So if you were wanting to be, I don't know, an online fitness coach, you could go and do some basic research in that sector. How big is that industry? What kind of turnover does that generate? How much is the revenue in that industry worldwide? Then you could break that down into what's that amount in your country or your specific area. Who would be the right type of clientele for you? So who would be the types of clients you'd want to attract? So you could be in any business. So take any number of businesses. You could be in the haulage business. You could be in the property business. You could be in the service business. You could be, providing advice or knowledge or wisdom, whatever your niche is. Go and find out how big that pie is in that sector of business. So you imagine that each business sector is divided into a pie, and then you want to see what size that is, because what you're wanting to do is make sure that there's enough revenue out there that you can capture some of it. So the first thing you want to do is find out how big that sector is. And really what you're looking to identify is how much money's in this industry, and can I capture some of that myself with my own style, my own presentation, and what I have to offer and my unique skill set. And with that, that will give you, why would you want to do that? Well, it'll give you the confidence that there's money out there. Because one of the things that people that can get trapped in a bit of a negative loop, we'll come on to the mindset part later, is they think that there's not enough business out there. And the reality is there's a lot of business out there. And one of the best ways to do it is to actually do the research so you know the size of the market. Once you do that, you know that there's a big enough pie to go after. Then the next thing that you should do, which will come on to the second most common thing, which is how do I know that I can scale this thing without burning myself out? So scaling a business without burning yourself out, it's one of those age-old questions where if you're currently getting by with the whatever you were doing for income, be it a job or a current business that you're operating, whatever you're doing is a means to live. You want to move to this new sector, this new industry, this new thing that you're looking to do. And generally what you'll have is you'll have an overlap, which means you'll be currently doing the job that you're doing. So let's use the example, you have a job, you're working for someone, you're working 8-10 hours a day. And then after you finish your work, you're then operating your side hustle. So you might be putting in an extra 3, 4, 5 hours, and then that doesn't leave you a lot of time. The danger is that you burn out. Well, one of the things that you can do is when you do the research and you work out what you should be charging, then you will know that there's money out there. And what you want to do is do a very basic cost analysis where you're like, if I'm putting this amount of hours in, how much would I like to earn? And if you're currently working in a job, you will generally be finding you can charge a lot more per hour in your side hustle than you would do if you were working as a job. Because remember, if somebody's employing you, they're making money that's more than what they're paying you. And that's the nature of business, that they're bringing in more money and they're paying you a wage off as some of that money that they've brought in. So if you're providing a service or a product, you're then capturing all of that as the business owner rather than some of that as the employee. So you want to then make some calculations where you say, right, look, I can make money doing this thing. And what you ultimately want to do is know that that's achievable. And one of the things that I think is really, really important is the task of making this jump from side hustle to your main business is people see it as a big leap. It's one huge leap in one go. And the way to actually combat that is to break it down into parts. So I'm a big fan of planning something out. And, people that are a bit pessimistic will say, what's the point in planning? Because plans always change. Well, that's true. Plans do change. And I guarantee you that the initial plan that you set will not be the plan that you end up with. But what you can achieve when you plan something out is you take a big thing and you break it up into smaller, more manageable tasks to handle. And with that, what you do is you program your mind to spot something that's big and breaking it down into smaller parts, which means that you can then work out things like what needs to come in what order. How do I divide these tasks up? Which thing is top priority? What do I need to focus in most? So like you'll have tasks, if you were to do a to-do list, there'll be tasks that are priority, that are the lifeblood of whatever your business is. And then you have things that are nice to get done, but not necessarily of high importance. So it's about analyzing these things, and what it does is it structures your day and your time that you have in a way that you can start to operate, that you're taking care of the things in the right order. And even though the plan will change and those things that will be in that order will change, it's the practice of spotting and breaking down a big task and making it into a small task that is really, really a key skill. And that's why I think plans are really, really good. Now, the other thing is setting targets. So we'll come on to targets in a moment in more depth, but planning and targets go hand in hand. And the reason that they go hand in hand is if you've got a plan you're looking for an outcome, and that outcome is a good result. So you want to set a target that's connected to your plan so that you can see if you're getting that good result or not. Makes sense, but often overlooked because people can get carried away on, you know, words like, well, you know, the business needs to grow. I need to do this front end work, you know, and so on and so on and so on. And that is perfectly reasonable, but you must have a target that matches your plan. And the reason that you want to triangulate this is you have your target, which is the outcome that you're looking for. You have your plan, which is how you're going to get there, and you've got this outcome, which is where you inevitably want to end up when the plan and the target marry up. So you do a sequence of steps and you end up at the outcome. That's how it works. And as simplistic as it sounds, believe it or not, most side hustles and most businesses aren't that much more complicated than that. The basic framework works. And the reason that that works so well is you take a big task and you break it down into smaller tasks. So one of the things that you'll find when you're doing a side hustle is you're doing lots of different jobs. So if you're currently employed, you'll have, you know, one job with some responsibilities, but there'll be other people supporting you or supporting that job that you're looking to fulfill. When you're doing a side hustle, you're responsible for everything. So it's even more important to plan and prepare than it would be for the type of work that you're doing currently. So as you know, I'm a big fan of visualization. I believe it's the most powerful tool that you can use to get from where you are to where you want to go. And if you want to know the secrets of how people visualize, the tools that I've used, I've spoken to many, many people that have used the exact same framework that has been spoken about for millennia. I've created a video series just for you. If this sounds right up your street and you want to know how to have that walkthrough video by video, explaining the action that you can take to get you from where you're at to where you want to go. The very first part of that is visualization. So click the link below and check it out. It's on offer now. This visualization series is normally 297 quid, and we've got it on offer now for £99. It's subscription free, it's lifetime access, and you can do it at your own pace. So go click the link. We'd love to see you getting out on the visualization bandwagon, starting getting those results that you know that you deserve. So the next question here is, what are some of the biggest mistakes to avoid when transitioning to a full-time business? Great question. One of the things I would say monumentally you want to do is not know where you're going and having markers. So one of the things that I always like to put in is backstops. So a backstop is a terminology from the military, which is if you set out a plan and say, for instance, you're tracking over a piece of terrain. I just want you to imagine that you've got a map and you're looking at the map for landmarks. So you're looking for like a pylon, a telephone pole, a river, a canyon, a road. These things are landmarks that are on the terrain. And let's say that you want to get from point A to point B. And past point B, if you know that you've went past the pylon, you've went the wrong way. Or if if the river's on your left instead of your right, you're on the wrong side of the river. And these are backstops, which means that you can spot landmarks or things that you can spot that you can tell you if you're on the right track or you're off track and to get back on course. So one of the things that I would say that you want to avoid is that you want to have measurements to make sure that you're on target. Now, the way that I structure it is we always start with the outcome first. What is the outcome that you want? So is it financial freedom? Do you want to quit your job? Do you want to expand your business? Do you want to have more growth? Do you want to have more flexibility? Do you want to have more freedom? Do you want to set up a future for your kids? Whatever the particular outcome it is that you want, and it can be some or all of those. And what you want to do is work out a structure that takes you from where you currently are to that outcome. And that's made up of planning, targets, and goals. So you take your big outcome and you break it down into smaller little wins. And then you work out a path to get from the first block to the second block to the third block. And you're working these blocks up that are going to accumulate till you get the big outcome that you're looking for. And the way that works is that you can structure and prioritize things in the way and order in which they need to happen. But it also means that if you're off track, like an example would be you're getting lots of business in and you're really good at marketing and you're bringing in lots of work, but you're not profitable. So you want to have a profit number that you need to meet. And then what you want to do is know that if that number's off, you're not making enough money, there's something that needs to be adjusted. Is your cost too high? Can they be reduced? Are you not charging enough money? Do you need to raise your prices? There'll be some sort of mixture in there that needs to be adjusted. Now, you can get blindsided because what happens is people think, well, I'm making a lot of money, or I'm not making a lot of money. I'm bringing in a lot of money and I'm getting lots of clients. So that's good. But we need to be particular in, well, is this matching the outcome, which is one of the goals is to be profitable. And one of the reasons that that's important is I have a target to hit. If I hit that target, I get closer to my outcome. In that way, you can then break down these things where you can spot things in the side hustle that you're doing that's going to help you to move from side hustle to a full-time business. And knowing those things is you're not going to do 6 months, 12 months, 18 months worth of work. That's lots and lots of work. Your side hustle, you're passionate about it. You know what you want, you know what you're looking for, but the planning, you've sort of slackened up. The details you've not paid a lot of attention to. You've been blindsided. You're getting lots of clients in, and then before you know it, you've done a lot of work for not a lot of money. And if you just had a basic eye on what comes in and what goes out, you'd have been able to spot that, right off the bat and make those adjustments. So these are the things that I would say in terms of the planning part. Now, we'll answer that question in terms of the mentality part later on, but I would say that the biggest thing is not having markers to know when you're on and off track, and you can do a lot of work and not get a lot of result. And with some easy, simple markers that you can spot and identify, you can make some easy changes that actually make a powerful result. So how do you manage your finances when you're moving to a side hustle? So one of the things that I'm a big fan of is giving yourself a lifeline. You want to build a lifeline into your plan, which is you're going to set yourself up for success. And what I mean by that is that if you're currently working for a paycheck, a monthly salary, you're used to a certain amount of money coming in. And a lot of people like the idea that they can increase the size of that amount that comes in, and they want to have more freedom, or they want to be more rewarded or more valued for the work that they do. Perfectly reasonable and absolutely understandable. What you need to calculate in though is when you're doing this thing from a side hustle, you're removing that safety net. You're removing that, nice comfort blanket of, well, I just get this money each month and that's fine. This is the thing, you're not made to push with that kind of incentive structure. But if you're moving into the side hustle, the reason that there's a different incentive structure is you're getting highly rewarded for the full value of what you bring to the table. But that means that comes at a price, and that price is you're not guaranteed to get all the work straight away, and you don't have that safety net of a salary. So you've got a choice to make. Do you want to, on one hand, stay employed and have the safety net, and I know what I'm getting in, which is a lower amount, usually lower than your value, or do you want a higher amount, which is more in line with your value, and an unlimited upside to getting growth and becoming financially free and getting out of this thing called the rat race? But it comes with a caveat, and that caveat is you're not guaranteed to get this money. So this, again, we'll cover it off in the mindset part of it, but on the planning part of it, what you want to do is budget yourself enough time to make big impact, to get that money in that matches your value, and you want to build in enough of a safety net that you can make that happen without the financial pressure causing you to go back to your old job or to panic about where you're going to get your next money in for your bills. So one of the things that I'm a big fan of is go and start to save up enough money that you can put away 6 months worth of what you need to cover your bills. One of the other things that you can do to maximize this is actually go and find out what are must-haves in your life and what are nice-to-haves that you can cut. So if there's things that are luxury items that you're spending money on monthly that you're not really using, or you could go without because you're busy on the side hustle, then cut them out. Just cancel those subscriptions, get rid of those memberships that you're not using, get rid of any of the fat that's on your expenses and bring your expenses down. And then what to also do is start to save some money. To imagine what you would need for 6 months. So say you're just keeping numbers round, say your bills were £1,000 a month, then save up £6,000 before you go full tilt, which gives you 6 months worth of money to go from, right, I'm going full time at this to it needs to be a success because I need to pay my bills. What that allows you to do is allows you the freedom to do it. Now, one of the other strategies that I like is if you have the ability to do this, you want to get into your side hustle and do it after you finish your work. And what that means is you can start to get income generation whilst you're working. And this is a twofold effect. You can save the money that you would have done traditionally in the, with you cutting the fat and putting aside some money, but also you can take the income stream, which is from your side hustle, and you can actually see it starting to work. And you can make little assessments and tweaks. Can I spend a wee bit more money in advertising whilst I'm working and I have this spare cash? Or am I better just banking that cash and giving myself a bigger buffer? And what happens is you can run the two of them concurrently. And that means that you now are getting proof that your side hustle works and your ability to scale, whilst also simultaneously saving and giving yourself more of a lifeline. That gives you a strategy that you can actually work with and know that you're giving yourself enough time for success. There's a lot of the times that when I've spoken to people who've given this a try and it's not worked, one of the things that what happens is they've got a really good idea, they've got a really good service or product, they're actually exceptional themselves. They've got everything dialed in, but they've just not given themselves enough time. And this is what happens. They expect it will happen in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And that they just didn't have enough time before they had to pay those bills. And then they were stuck. Well, what do you do? And one of the things that I like to do is say, look, either save enough money if that's possible to bank it and give yourself that buffer, or run it concurrently at small scale to get proof of concept, proof that this works, and then reinvest that money back in. And that's going to get you through all sorts of the main problems, because if you've got the side hustle and it's working and you've got the proof, then you know it will work. You just need to give it enough time for it to happen. So next question is, when do I know it's time to quit my main job? There's a few ways that you can kind of work this out. I mean, again, it depends on the particular type of business that you've got. So if you're looking to make it your main role, one of the things that you want to do is know, like, is it, are you covering more than what your salary gives you? Yes. So that would be a good time, because you're getting more money in than you're getting more money in for your time, efforts and labor than you are for working for someone else, giving them your time and labor for whatever their objectives are. So that's a really good marker. The second is, if you've got to the point where your side hustle is doing really well and you just need to give it more hours, and it's like an open goal, you can see the value in what you're doing. You've run it long enough, you can see the value in it, and you think, well, look, it's time to take the leap, because if it's working at this point with the amount of hours that I've given it so far, if I could give it more of my time, more of my focus, more of my attention, what would the result be? And that's sort of the basis of what you're looking to figure out, is if you give it, is it paying you more than what you're getting paid just now? That's number one. And the second thing is, are you, if it's working just now, how much better would it work if you gave it your full-time attention? That are the two main things that I would focus on. There's some other nuanced things, but for the purposes of keeping it straightforward, they're the basic two that you want to have dialed in, so that you can feel very confident that when you move forward with this, it's going to be a big success. So what's the main skills to develop? Well, that sort of segues nicely into the question of mentality, because I think one of the main things that you can develop other than planning is your mental aspect of it, because the doubt, fear, anxiety, the unknown is the elephant in the room that people don't want to address. Because generally, if you've got to the point where you're seriously considering moving your side hustle to your main business, you generally have had some success. You've got something that works, that you've got a little spark there that you can think, hey, look, if I put all my effort into it, this could be, a raging fire of success. So one of the things that can really deter people is how they think about it, how they see it, what the issues are, what could be the possible faults and problems. So it segues nicely into us diving into the mentality aspect of it. So moving into the mentality part of it, this is the big issue that people face, usually in a lonely way, because it's difficult to explain how they feel about this thing that they're doing. It's generally a solo venture. Very rarely you're around people that are all in business that can sort of understand what you're going through and know and explain and give you a lot of guidance. I would say that more so in this day and age, there's a lot more access to that now. If you find the right topics, if you find the right people, you find the right content. One of the things that is the fear of the unknown, and the fear of the unknown is drilled into you from a young age. Uh, and people are like, well, what if? What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I don't get enough clients? What if they don't pay? What if it backfires? What if I'm not good enough? So there's a lot of what ifs, and in my experience, that if you were to make a mountain, a huge mountain of what ifs, and the entire mountain was made up of these what ifs that people have, the reality of what comes true is like a tiny rock that falls off that mountain that probably is there, meaning that a lot of these what ifs don't happen. And they're really a figment of your mind, your imagination, and really a bit of, pessimism. It's great to think about the possible what ifs if you go one step further. But if you just answer the negative side of what if this doesn't work, what if this backfires, go one more step, which is, and that's great to think about, how would I handle that? And what if it worked? What would it look like? What would it be like if it became a success? What would it look like if I had lots of orders? What would it look like if I was at full capacity? What would it look like if I was expanding? What would it look like if I was financially free? What would it look like if it was making lots of money? So there's many, many, many what ifs that you can take one step further, because if you want to explore the negative, then go one step further and explore not only just the negative but the positive, because what you're doing is getting a balanced thought process. You're getting a balanced view where you can answer these questions. So an example would be, what if I don't get enough clients? Well, if you don't get enough clients, that gives you an opportunity. That's good, because you can get an opportunity to figure out what it is that you need to do to get new clients. Do you need to change up your marketing strategy? Do you need to increase the amount that you're posting? Do you want to consider some cheap versions of paid ads? Do you want to start developing your network? Is there anyone that you can reach out to? So there's lots of what if, and then how can I make it work? And then what happens if you do get lots of clients? What does that look like? And then you can build up a picture where you go, okay, it's good to think that that is something I need to consider, because what you're doing is you're developing backstops like we did in planning, which is, the backstop is, hey, look, you've went too far, that you need to do something. A backstop's alerting you that you're not on the right track. And if you're not getting enough clients, the backstop, you've then created the backstop where you can identify it and you can adapt and you can adjust. So that's a great thing to do to beat the unknown. The second thing is, the mentality part is, people focus on the fear, the big bad fear, the doomsday scenario. I don't get paid, I can't get any work, I don't know what I'm doing, and so on. Well, also, what to do is do some basic calculations. If you were at maximum capacity and you hit all the targets that you could possibly set, and at the price point or margin or profit or hourly rate that you charge, however it is that you're constructing this side hustle, your main business, what would be the reward if you got it all right? And I'm going to tell you something now. That reward is nearly almost always greater than you think. So you generally will make more money than you could think. You will generally get a lot more clients than you could think. You'll generally have greater success than you think. You'll get greater conversions. You'll get greater results than you think. So these are all things that, the reason that you want to do a side hustle is that you've got some talent, you've got some potential, and you want to put it on the line to see what you've got. And that potential will always surprise you. If you put in the work and you put in the hours, you're going to be surprised to the upside about how good your potential actually is. And you'll always get a lot better results than you thought you would. And that's the thing, that's the pleasant surprise about all this. So what you want to do is to quash fear, look at the reward, and then ask yourself, is this thing that I'm afraid of worth a shot and a gamble? Because this reward could be huge. And remember what I said, the reward is usually always greater than whatever you think it is, because you're going to feel free. You're going to feel a sense of freedom and security and a master of your own destiny and being in control and being able to make decisions that you wouldn't make. Like, if you want to take time off, do you want to double down? Are you being rewarded for the hard work that you do? You're doing this hard work and you're being categorically rewarded for the amount of work that you're putting in. Now, you're not going to get that in a corporate job. You're not going to get that in some place that pays you paycheck to paycheck. It will be directly reflected in your services that you provide. So that is exactly why you want to do it. And following on from the idea of breaking it down, mentally, if you're struggling with the concept of the fear, break the sections down of what you're doing into smaller sections. So if your whole thing is, right, I'm moving my job to becoming my main income and my main business. Well, let's break that down. Let's work out some basics. Okay, so it's going to be my main source of income. Good. What kind of income do I need to make? So I've got a target now of this is what I need to bring in. So I work out my revenue, I work out my expenses, and then I work out my profit, and then that's what my target is. Then you want to work out things like what's the minimum amount of clients I would need, or products I would need to sell, or things that I need to develop and expand. You work out your basic minimums, and then you then break down how small they are. And then that gives you small targets to hit. So now instead of dealing with this big moving object, you're now dealing with small moving objects. And what that does to your brain mentally is you start to, instead of looking at it as one big overwhelming problem, you're now looking at it as little small obstacles that you can easily get over. And then at this point, when you do that, what happens is you can start to work out, right, how do I get over them and which one should I do in which order? So, like, for instance, you don't need to worry about profit if you don't have any clients or you don't have any sales. So what you want to develop first is, well, how do I get the thing that's most important, which is the lifeblood to your business is revenue. So you want to develop your priority first is to develop revenue. When you bring in revenue, then your next thing is how profitable you are. So then you can then start to either reduce costs or increase prices. You know, you could start with an introductory offer and then increase it back to your full rate, which will then allow people to sample whatever your service is and think, hey, this guy's great. So, or girl, they're great and they provide great value and they're solving a problem for me. And following on from the mentality part of it is when you break it down into smaller steps, you're building in that lifeline to stack the chips in your favor. So it's giving you all the opportunity for success. And mentally, what that does is it allows you to think about, right, if I hit these little targets, I am getting closer to success. I am getting closer and closer and closer because I've identified the little small markers. Imagine that you're walking along. Imagine you're walking along a road and this road represents your road that you're going down. And at the start of that road, you're currently employed and you're, loads of fear and you don't know what to do and you're having this huge amount of, fear and uncertainty and doubt. And it's only going to be one little crumble, but you start and that's what it's like. And then at the end of the road, this particular road is your huge outcome. And then what you want to do is, rather than saying you've got this huge journey to take along this full road, break the road down into sections. So that section is, well, when I get to this part, there's a marker there and the target of that marker is, right, by this point I have 10 clients or 50 sales or whatever your particulars are. And then once you do that, you move to the next section of the road and the next section of the road and the next section of the road. And what it means is rather than you focusing on this huge problem, you have little things that you can identify that's structured in such a way that you can focus on the things that are important. And with that, what it does is it stacks the chips in your favor for success. But from a mentality point of view, it means that you're not focusing on this huge thing. You're focusing on something that's smaller, way more easier to manage, and you can see tangible progress. And that's why it's important to break things down in your mind, because you can then run a checklist and get those results. And that is how you can stack the chips in your favor. So to summarize it, I would say the overall message from today in terms of making your side hustle become your main business when do you know it's ready, what to do, and these types of things, is you want to take this big objective, you want to break it down into tangible pieces and actions that you can take, and then you want to build or plot out a path where you can take incremental steps to make that result happen. And that really is the basics of it. And I'm going to tell you right now, this has worked so many times for so many people that have become financially free, have success stories. They follow the same pattern. So if you've got something out there that you want to try and you want to give it a go, then go for it. And hey, look, see if you fail. Guess what? You've got more information. Brush yourself down and go again. And what's the worst that can happen? Well, you could have gave it a crack. You'd have had a great experience. And you can always go back to your job if that's what you decide to do. But it'll surprise you how much easier it is than you think. And all the big mountain of fears, there might be a tiny crumb. And that's way easier to go over than a mountain. So I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Mount Mindset and how to move your side hustle to your main business. My top tips, the planning side and the mentality side. If you've enjoyed this episode, please let me know. And if you know anyone that would need this information, share this episode along, let them see it, and they can start to get those wheels turning in their mind, get their mentality right, start to break down the planning into smaller sections to get the result that they think that they deserve. And hopefully we can see great success and see more of these people smashing it and becoming financially free. And if that sounds like you, then there's no better time to start. So we hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and we'll be back next week with the next in the series, and we'll look forward to seeing you then. But from me this week, that's a wrap.